We're going to turn our attention now to rugby. Last weekend, Ireland made history after sealing a series win in Wellington over the All Blacks. An epic win for Ireland. Delighted to say that I'm joined by Ronan O'Gara. How's it going, Ronan?
Hey Aisling, how are you?
Good now. What was your reaction to the win, Ronan?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Obviously, it was very well constructed, I thought. I was chatting actually to Adrian, bumped into him on holidays. Adrian was enjoying the delights of Ile de Ré. So we watched the All Ireland together and discussed a bit of the game. At 21-3, it looked like it was going to get extremely nasty for the All Blacks, but in fairness to them, they I suppose came back with a better plan after half time, and that's what they do. They kind of score out of nothing, and their 2 tries were probably a little bit of individual brilliance. But Ireland refocused, and then I think you have to really mention when Andrew Porter got the yellow card, how I suppose Ty Burns took over. Yes, it was a team performance, but he really came up with big plays. Big players come up with big moments, and that's a perfect example of it. He changed the momentum of the game again back in Ireland's favour, and that's difficult to do away from home, especially against a team that's fighting for their lives. But then Ireland controlled the last 10 minutes, and they controlled the ball, and it's probably from their point of view, I think they would have liked to have got a final score to really drive the nail in the coffin. But to win the series and win by 10 points and do it so comfortably will give that group huge confidence.
Yeah, it was incredible. And watching on at something like that, to see Ireland win a test series in that way, what does it mean to you? Was it emotional watching it, or what sort of emotions did you have?
No, I didn't. I wasn't emotional, I suppose, because it didn't feel like a tight game. I thought Ireland were very much in control, and it was a good example of how much their attack has improved, and probably how their team is completely aligned between their forwards and backs, and everyone understanding their role. The tries they scored with the ball were just so interesting to watch, because they picked apart a good team. You can't say that at the minute the New Zealand team is a great team, but I think was it Robbie Henshaw's try just before half time is just the joy you get from being in that Irish, I suppose, camp when that comes off is hugely exciting. But that could be a good big starting point for Ireland in their, when they play like that. They're a very, very difficult team to stop, and it probably reinforces also that yes, they won the series, which is huge over the summer, but I suppose the record of this group of players and staff is very, very good, and they've been consistently good. And you recall the game in Stade de France, they had France under the pump and pushing them really hard to win the game at the end of the game, and that's the only game they've lost, if I'm correct.
Yeah, and a lot of people were talking about where this moment ranks in Irish sport. I suppose for Irish rugby achievements, where would you say this moment would rank?
Yeah, it's I suppose the fact that blows all the other arguments out of the water is that there's 2 other teams that are 5 in total that have won a series in New Zealand soil over hundreds of years. Is that right?
Yeah, so there was South Africa in 1937, the Lions in 1971, you had Australia in 86, and then France in 94.
Yeah, so since, I suppose professional rugby, there hasn't been a team to do it. So, that group of players from Ireland that went over this summer, they'll always have that memory. They're the first. They've done it. And it's great too, because it puts everything into perspective a little bit. Everyone is chasing a World Cup, but there's building blocks to be performing in a World Cup, and that's the biggest building block. That's the biggest thing when you hit the rocks, and the team will have rocky periods because it's another 15 months to the World Cup, but they'll look back and go, okay, well, what stood to us when we were under the pump after losing the first test in New Zealand, when everyone And it sums up sport as well. Everyone was kind of ridiculing them 3 weeks ago, and the fact that, oh, it's going to be a long, desperate, hard tour, and this team is old and it's stale. And then 2 weeks later, oh wow, look at the way these guys play. So it's a nice little bit of reminder for the hurlers on the ditch as well that sport changes very quickly, but judge a team over a consistent period of time. And I think that's why Ireland under Andy Farrell and under this group of players have been very, very good.
Ronan, did you and Adrian share a cheese board last weekend?
Adrian would love that.
No, he was a bit off the pace now. I didn't think he doesn't like the old glass of beer in the afternoon, so that's something he needs to improve on. No, he was doing the family man. He was kind of watching kids, watching the game, but what a game of hurling too, it was hard to keep our eye on the kids for that period of time. But we didn't share a cheese board. No, I'm more basics, a little bit of. There wasn't even. I don't think I offered them. Maybe a glass of rosé, but I don't even think I offered them that.
Very good. We must get Adrian's perspective on that as well over the next few weeks. Ronan, can I just ask there about the building blocks point that you made there? Do you feel now, I know, granted we don't have the benefit of hindsight here, do you feel now that the win last week is a more significant building block for a team in a World Cup cycle than, say, a Grand Slam would have been in 2018 into 19?
I think so. I would definitely think so, because it's a different challenge, and the fact that we're very similar with Grand Slams and the program and the preparation involved in peaking for a Grand Slam. What no other team has done is they've peaked at the end of a season when all the potential excuses are available to go to New Zealand, and winning one test is juicy enough, but to win the series is as powerful a statement as you can possibly make. So for that group, especially losing the first one and losing it by 23 points, there were only, I suppose, little crumbles of comfort to be taken out. But I think watching it, you could see if Ireland were a little bit more active and a little bit more aggressive in certain areas of the game, that could come together. And then, as you know, sometimes when you put the bigger rugby nation under pressure at home, that can cause mental problems for that team. And that's what Ireland did in Test 2. And then in Test 3, what they did brilliantly is obviously they had such a big lead, because when it becomes a one-score game, the momentum that the ABs can get playing at home was huge. But the fact that they probably had a power play, a big moment, a purple patch, a big moment, that gave them the 2 tries, but Ireland were still ahead again, and there was 5 points, so the 3 points became another 2 scores. You're always in a great position mentally to have that 2-score cushion, and I think Ireland did that well. But the fact that it's completely out of their comfort zone with an 11-hour, 12-hour time difference back home, your kind of world turned upside down, playing 5 games, some boys having to tog out on the Tuesday or the Wednesday night and do the bench, and it just shows, I suppose, where there's a will, there's a way, and everyone is into this kind of, I suppose, textbook preparation for a test week. But you look with 2 Maori games thrown in week 1 and week 3. When you have a plan, when you believe in the plan can work, and Ireland showed that brilliantly, especially after, I suppose, a hugely difficult start for them on tour.
And Andy Farrell definitely had a plan to go out and win the series. I suppose there was a lot of talk at the start of it. Were we going to see other players getting a chance, to move things around in the squad, to build, to look ahead to the World Cup? And I suppose he didn't do that exactly. He probably had it in his mind. He wanted to go out and win this series. Were you impressed with the job he's done and he is currently doing so far?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me one bit. I think going back 20 years, the guy was an absolute phenomenal player and leader for Wigan. I would have been a big fan of rugby league growing up, and I would have watched his team, and the team before he came into that team, and there's some very, very special players on both coasts that have come out of that environment. And I think his roots and his DNA are very, very strong, and he brings that with him in his coaching. He's very humble, he's very down to earth, and he's very capable of putting his hand up if he feels he hasn't gotten it right, and he's got it right far more often than anyone else. But I think he's very approachable, and that's what the players, I think, admire him. And he doesn't mind probably thinking outside the box and doing things differently and having a go and playing with a smile on their face and having a look and backing his players. And I think the good thing is he is developing his team most definitely, but to develop his team, I think he's created an environment where players aren't just going to get thrown a jersey. You have to go out there and prove yourself in training, and the best players want to play with the best players. So this is an ultra ruthless environment as well, top level sport. But what he's doing now, he's getting results where very few people have got them. And I think building for the World Cup can start again, because we're still a summer before a World Cup. There's another 15 months. The energy and the momentum could be completely different in another 12-month cycle. So there are obviously a few positions where the depth is a little bit weaker, but that's what happens when you have world-class position or players in that position, and that'll always be the case in the top teams around the world. So what needs to be is that you need your 23 to be incredibly good. For your 23 to be incredibly good, your numbers, 23 to 40 or 23 to 32 have to be so competitive.
Yeah, it does seem that he's getting the best out of these players. And Johnny Sexton's someone that we didn't think we would see in all three of the games. Is he in the form of his life at the minute, Ronan?
Yeah, I think so. I think Johnny feeds off people writing him off, and I think he's shown that, but he needs to seek his own motivation going forward as well, because he's playing the game brilliantly at the minute. He's reading it, I think, a lot quicker than even 4 or 5 years ago. And it's not easy to, do that. And he backed up the first test, the second test, and third test at 37 years of age. Doing that is a huge feat, and mentally to be able to do that speaks volumes for where his, I suppose, mentality is at the minute. But you can see that he's very happy with the environment, very happy with the coaching group. Everything seems to be aligned, and I think that's when you see the number 10 in their best vein is when I suppose the camp is buzzing. Your 10 looks better than he actually is, and then when it's the opposite, he looks worse than he actually is. But there's no doubt about Johnny's individual game is very, very strong at the minute. But I think what also would be important for me to say is that the coaching group has the environment and the team humming. Be it Andy Farr, I think, obviously I'm biased, but Paul O'Connell's work is stamped all over this team. This guy is an incredibly interesting person, never mind coach, player, always, I suppose, seeking a little entry into a subject matter that may not be evident to other people, and would always explore to the nth degree. And if he can find some joy in that matter, he'll develop it, he'll analyse it, and then he'll potentially use it. So a fascinating deep thinker on the game, and you could see, I suppose, his habits and his methods all over the forward play the last day. You look at it like you need a set piece, you need a driving maul, and you need a good kind of ruck game. And Ireland were exemplary in both departments.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to have people like Paul around the setup. And when we speak about the 10 position, where's the pecking order now for you? We've seen Kieran Frawley come in, obviously Joey Carberry as well. For you, where do you see that pecking order?
I think it's the pecking order remains the same. You have Johnny Sexton, you have Joey Carberry, and then I think you have a decision of probably where is Kieran Frawley going to play, because if he wants to challenge to play international rugby at 10, he has to be playing club, it's too difficult at the top level to be a hybrid, in the fact that if he's playing Malt's club rugby at 12 for Leinster and hoping to start test games for Ireland at 10, and I would say that would be a bit of a long shot. So he'll also be, I suppose, from what I kind of see from the outset, I think he'll always put his team first, but sometimes he needs to have a word with his coach and say, well, if he wants to play 10, then he wants to be considered to play 10, but Leinster are extremely competitive in that position, so it's a difficult conundrum for him or for others to sort.
Ronan, can I ask you about the All Blacks head coach situation then? There's obviously been a whole pile written about it over the last week, and in fairness, the All Blacks have kind of thrown a bit of petrol on it as well, saying that they're going to announce a review, and they are going to do a review. The sense seems to be that Ian Foster has a couple of games against South Africa at the start of the Rugby Championship to potentially save his job. I know that that's not necessarily the All Blacks way, but is your read on it that he is in a bit of trouble if those South Africa games don't go his way?
Yeah, potentially with the results, but I suppose there's one thing that in this position, he's under pressure from what has happened in this series. I understand what he's going through. I'm a head coach, and I'm not going to speculate or give my opinion on whether he should be kept in the job or not. I just think that it's a difficult question, and he's in a difficult period, but as he said in his press conference, he is resilient, he is a deep strategist, and that's the ruthless side of the game, and the fact that when results don't go your way, be it me, be it him, sometimes people make decisions to take you out of that position, but I don't have a strong opinion on that.
I guess just to kind of stick with that, the idea that it all falls on the head coach probably is not necessarily something that you could overly say either. You could make a case one way or the other. There's obviously been talk around who might potentially come in. Like, as a head coach in that situation, what is that pressure like? I know, just not even from your own perspective as a head coach, but even just being in New Zealand, you'll have seen the relationship between that team and the public. Is it a case that every single result that doesn't go their way is almost like a doomsday scenario? Or is that just putting too fine a point on it?
Yeah, no, it's very different in there. They absolutely, the mood of the nation is determined by how the All Blacks play, and that still applies. Obviously, there's probably a few other distractions in New Zealand, but I would not underestimate the role that the All Blacks have on the mood of the nation, and there's a massive focus on that position, but also that's what happens when you go into sport and into rugby, into management. Like, you are the head coach, the assistants are completely different, and the pressure on the head coach is completely different, and that's an unwritten rule, and that will never change. And we're aware of what happens if results don't go your way, but you have to accept that, and accept that it's not a personal attack on you. This is the business, and this is what happens if you're underperforming. And there's a moral contract written up before you sign any physical contract that if the boss isn't happy, or if the supporters aren't happy, usually it coincides with someone getting fired, and that's the cut and trust of what managers do, what we do.
And two teams that are going to hopefully perform this weekend to the best of their ability is Kerry and Galway. Will you be watching on at the All-Ireland final, Ronan?
Oh, will I what? I'll be glued to it.
Give us a prediction.
Oh, jeez, I was hoping you want... I know Eoin is listening, but Oh,
It's not easy.
no, it isn't easy, but it's not easier. I'll tell you next week.
What you'll tell me the prediction next week?
No, I'll tell you next week why I'm sitting on the fence.
Okay.
I have an interest. I have an interest
Okay.
I'd be a big fan of Pádraig Joyce. So I chat to Pádraig. So
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
I'm west of Ireland this weekend.
Was Shawnee Shea wasted to football? He could have been a great number 10 for Munster, you'd suspect.
Oh, imagine seeing that in Thomond Park. Because he'd have 28,000 people there. How many does he in Fitzgerald Stadium? You get what, 12, 15,000 on the?
I know, if Cork are good running, you could get 40.
I'm only joking. What a kick. What a kick.
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I seen you tweeting after it. It was incredible. 55 metres out, a bit of a tricky wind. Yeah, just amazing stuff.
But it's the same too, like, there was a little bit of dismay about what game went to penalties.
Armagh Galway.
Armagh Galway, that was it. But like, it's not a lottery. People have to understand that. It's a little bit like Sheahan having the mental capacity at 80 minutes to be able to kick his same kick, be it the first minute or second minute or the 82nd minute. This is what you prep for. These are the golden moments, and the penalty shootout isn't a lottery. It's a big skill. Yes, you have a goalkeeper, but usually if you commit to the kick and you put it where you want to, the green flag is raised, well, depending on Hawkeye. But so yeah, I think it's been a really exciting football championship. I've been glued to it every weekend, and well, maybe I might be. For the summer, we might have a new football correspondent.
Oh, yeah? Is that you, Ronan?
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, I shouldn't sound surprised.
I have a Fela medal, Aisling.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Bishopstone.
Very good, very good. Where did you play, Ronan?
Oh, corner forward.
Same as me.
You're corner forward.
Yeah, number 13.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I modelled myself a little bit on Mike Frank Russell.
Do you know who I love? Pádraig Joyce. Loved his dummies.
Yeah.
He used to replicate that. Well, I used to try anyway.
But he was a left footer, yeah?
Yeah, I'm left foot.
Oh.
There you go now.
Mike Frank.
Mike Frank, yeah, loved him.
What about him?
Just made Gaelic football look so easy.
Brilliant, Ronan. Well, I'd rather not wrap this conversation, but I have to. Thanks so much.
Yes.
Great chatting to you.
Have a good weekend. See you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Emil. Ronan there, fascinating as ever. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Back after the ads with an All-Ireland football final special, Quick Picks.